Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what is happening up in the stars above. Well, I had a great show all planned for us this morning, but Mercury in retrograde having some more fun with me as our dear Pia and Cullen are having trouble accessing StreamYard. What can I say, right? Life is so interesting some days. So I'm hoping that they will be able to join us shortly. And if I see them come in, I will bring them into the show. So I apologize. We'll have to just wing it for a little bit because I didn't plan a whole lot for this morning because usually I don't have a lot of time when we're talking with them. So good morning, J-Lo, and good morning, Pauline. Good to see you ladies out there this morning. And Christine Buckingham, hello. So let's just dig in, shall we? We have an interesting weekend coming up. It's actually a good weekend coming up with the sun finishing its transit through Gemini and on Sunday entering the 0 Cancer degree, which we also know as the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere and the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. So we have change in the works for us as we are going on through this weekend. And, this week has been a fairly calm and quiet sort of week. We haven't had, other than the shadow period that we're facing, which a lot of people's shadows have been triggered. Shadow meaning fears, but also just, sort of things that we thought we were done with that suddenly come back at us, right? Shadows being triggered. And then no major aspects happening, no major changes up until Sunday when we have Jupiter, planet of growth and expansion, turning into retrograde, and then also the summer solstice. Now, the summer solstice happens on the 20th for those of us here in the USA, 11:32 p.m. for those of you on the East Coast, 8:32 p.m. for those of us here on the West Coast. If you're in Europe and parts further east or west, you're going to have a June 21st summer solstice instead of June 20th. And that's because that will happen after the midnight hour, putting it into the next day for you all. So today, our primary purpose was, of course, to have Pia and Cullen talk to us a bit about what's going on in the Pleiadian-Earth calendar, and as well, kind of a wrap-up of the shadow period that ended yesterday. And then I would talk a bit about the summer solstice. So in the short term here, let's just start talking about some of the things that I wanted to bring up today. And then we'll take a look at the summer solstice chart and what we can expect there. And then if they come in, we'll stop that. We'll change over to their information, and then we'll come back. So, they're here. They're here. I see them. Let's add to the stream. Hi, how are you guys?
Hi.
Little technical challenges.
That happened. So what was the final outcome? What did you have to do?
I switched browsers to Brave instead of Chrome. Google Chrome would not take any of the directions to open the camera. So I switched to Brave, and Brave got us in.
Interesting, because I use Google Chrome. In fact, it's the one that they say works the best with this particular program. So how funny is that?
Yes, and we just used Google Chrome for this particular program a week or two ago, and it worked fine. But today, it's not.
Of course not. Mercury in its retrograde. So I was just telling everybody one of the things I wanted to talk about with you guys today. By the way, welcome. I'm so glad that you made it.
We're glad to be here.
Especially because I usually plan, what I'm going to say based on, how much time I think you two and I are going to spend together. So I was like, now what are we going to do? But it always seems to work out just fine. So I'm really glad that you made it. And what I thought we might want to talk about today, and maybe that you have your own topic that you want to talk about, is maybe the close-up of the shadow period and what your thoughts are on these past days, 20 days. And I was just looking at the summer solstice, and I realized that it begins on an ending, a day, an ascension day, 13. Oh gosh, now I don't even remember what the 13 was. I know. Oh, it's 13 listening. Yes, with 1 planting as the next day. So I thought maybe we'd talk about that. Does that work for you too?
Sure.
That's exactly in alignment with what we were thinking.
Awesome.
Especially on 13 listening, it's also solstice, which is always an auspicious time. So solstice coming right before planting energy is very interesting.
Tell us more about that. Why would that be interesting? I mean, I was interested because I was like, wow, okay, interesting times we live in. So tell me what you find interesting about that, and what can we expect now moving on into the summertime?
What I find interesting about that is solstice is all about the light. In the northern hemisphere, it's the time when we have the most light. In the southern hemisphere, it's the time when it's the darkest, but it's either way, wherever you are, it's about the light. And planting is an auspicious time in the high energy that allows us to bring forward whatever we need to bring forward, new ideas, new things. But that's the high end of it. The low end of that energy is that we are immature and irresponsible, and we don't see or do things in the way that we should. So having this align with solstice is like a double blessing. We have this opportunity that we can see things that we need to see, plant seeds for wisdom, for new ideas, positive movement, and it's being invoked by the light.
I love that, invoked by the light. And, there really is a lot of light energy around the solstices and even the equinoxes. I mean, they're changing or turning points of the light, if you will. And for at least for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're turning to our longest days of the year, the warmest days of the year. And interesting because the exact opposite happening in the Southern Hemisphere, where they're facing their shortest days and a diminishing of the light. So to me, when I think about that, it seems like there's a balance happening, that this is a particularly good time to balance things that might be out of balance in our lives and even in our own energy fields. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. It's another one of those discussions about duality where the balance that you talk about, it's absolutely the opposite from north to south, south to north. So there's an automatic balancing mechanism in there. So you're absolutely right to bring up that element of that part of the whole understanding.
It was interesting this morning because every morning my phone delivers me the kind of the news stories of the day. And I'm going to see if it's still here because this one caught my eye first off. And it was, I think, Earth's energy is out of whack. That was the headline, right? I'm like, duh. And then it says that the Earth is absorbing more heat than it's emitting, which is causing it to be out of balance and causing, of course, our heat waves and weather anomalies that are out of whack. But I just thought, and that was from the Weather Channel, right? They don't give me my weather. They tell me the Earth is out of whack. What is that like in keeping with the energies that we are experiencing as an evolutionary impulse, or what would you say to that?
Well, I think that's perfect. It's the synchronicity. What we're finding is that synchronicities are coming to us. I don't mean Pia and me, I mean everyone.
Yeah.
Synchronicities are popping up in ways that they have never been so rapid or connective. So I would say that little piece you got this morning is totally indicative of how everything's connected and we get the right information at the right time.
Yeah. It's just funny to find all week long, actually all the last 20 days while we were in the shadow period, I was noting the headlines and it seemed like various shadows were popping up. And in my own personal life, it wasn't until last night, like at the very last moment of June 17th, when those shadow energies really became apparent for me personally. And I was like, oh man, thank God tomorrow begins a new, we're out of the shadow period. But then I realized we're really not, as the moon in Libra for this particular weekend and then moving into Scorpio at the summer solstice extends that period of time, because the moon moving through each of those signs is triggering more of the fears that lie within us. And so I think it kind of changes from the more collective expression of those fears and shadows to the more personal expressions of them.
That's a good understanding.
Yep.
Well, I think it's interesting also with what you've just explained and the fact that the solstice comes immediately after the end of the collective shadow cycle, right on the heels of that. And then we move into the individual part, and planting energy is an individual energy. It's about individual focus of awareness. It's the place where we can make changes within ourselves. So that aligns really perfectly.
Yeah, you're right. I think the energy of planting, I always kind of like the one planting days because they make me feel like a new beginning is possible, even if it's not with a new moon or some other major big starting point. But there's also something about maturity in planting energy, isn't there? That, sometimes that it's having to grow up.
Yes, because what generally shows up is actions that are done from immaturity and irresponsibility, which is the lower end of the energy. All earth energies have a higher and a lower vibration, or a higher and lower path. And people who are trying to evolve and are trying to be conscious are going to take responsibility for their choices. So therefore, it becomes a very auspicious opportunity to plant new seeds for new wisdom, new positive ideas. It gives us hope. Whereas those who are at the lower end may just rely on dumb luck and just willy-nilly make choices out of nowhere because they're not having any idea about responsibility to the highest good for all. So the maturity aspect and the responsibility aspect are really key in this, particularly since planting is based on individual level of consciousness. Everything is about me, me, me. And that me needs to be thinking about, how am I impacting everyone else?
Seeing the bigger picture, in other words.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. What the reason I was focused in on the shadow energy was last evening. There's been this neighborhood issue going on. I live in on an island, but there's a little neighborhood of people that we have here where I'm placed on this island. And there's just been this backbiting, sniping kind of energy going on. And I ended up being a recipient of some of it last night. And I was really shocked by that because I thought that I lived in an area of people that might be a little more, I don't know, evolved perhaps, because they all seem to have been getting along. So it made me think about how sometimes those shadows come up. That shadow energy comes up in a way that we least expect it. And I know, talking to some of my friends and clients out there have been some people that have experienced most strange and difficult circumstances over the past 20 days. And some people who are like, what shadow period? Which was kind of where I was at one point. And then others who, are really doing the work to move through those things that are popping up in their lives. Has that been something you've been noticing around people too?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no accident that what you're describing in your community would show up during this kind of period. I mean, it's perfect to show us that these elements of astrology really make sense. I mean, they're on time. They're perfectly placed for people to either, as Pia said, take the high road or the low road. And I'm sorry, but most of the collective often takes the low road, and that sniping and that gossipy, that disruptive energy shows up, but they don't know why. They don't know why they're involved in it because they don't understand the big picture, as you just explained.
Yeah. But I don't even know why I'm involved in it at this point, other than I'm placed in the middle of the neighborhood.
Well, sometimes, Janet, it's just the light in the darkness.
Maybe, but there comes a point in time, and I think I'm fast approaching it, where you are just so tired of all of this, right? Where you're just fatigued from all of that shadow energy. Is that a symptom of our getting closer to letting it all go?
Well, I hope so.
I hope so too.
Yeah, me too.
We're also experiencing that very sense that, come on, guys, it's time to wake up, get with the program, be more responsible. I mean, I could go on and I won't, but this is the perfect time for people to realize that they're not here alone, only doing what they want to do for themselves, their family, their tribe. It's time to have a much bigger scope in understanding the big picture.
I agree. And frankly, anymore, I don't even know what that means. Like, how do you initiate something like that? I mean, we can do our own little part, but it seems sometimes like we are backed up against a huge bubble of resistance to that.
I think that's true, but I think you also have to not focus on the huge bubble of resistance. You have to focus on your being the one candle that's lighting up a dark room. What you can do, and as everybody else focuses on what they can do, it joins together energetically to make a difference.
And even though we might think what we're doing individually isn't very great, everything that we're doing positively, the work that you're doing, the help that you're bringing to humanity, not only helps each of your clients in what you're doing, but it ripples out way beyond energetically. So I think we have to think in a bigger way, that it may seem that what we do individually isn't very big, but actually it is, because it contributes energetically out and out in a much bigger way than we even can see from our own perspective.
We have to remember that everything is energy. Everything. We're energy. So therefore, if we are changing and enlarging our own energy and bringing more love into our field, then that's going to ripple out too. It's going to make a difference. So we have to hold on to the fact that we may not be able to see those changes, but they can be felt. They can be felt. And then it'll change what we can see slowly.
Yeah. Well, I'm tired of slow. Let's do it faster, okay?
I've been saying this for so long. I grew up with so many predictions and so many new age ideas about this is the time. It's going to happen now. It's going to come to fruition. And I've been waiting for such a long time for what I think and what I know in my heart is not only possible, but it will come to fruition. It will happen. But the timing is so long. It seems like it's been going on forever.
Mm-hmm.
It does. And one of the thoughts I have about that as you're saying that is that in the span of a human lifetime, which let's just say, is between 70 and 80 years, let's say, and that the whole backdrop of the stars moves only 1 degree across the ecliptic. So it would take literally, well, this is how we get an age, 26,500 years before you see a big difference or a shift in the energies. This would be like the shift from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense then that any evolutionary energy that we would see in our lifetime is probably small compared to what is potential when you look at it over the course of time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really accurate.
Yeah, and everything does move slowly from the perspective of our limited amount of time that we get to be here on the planet. Mm-hmm. Or at least that we remember being here on the planet.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like when everybody who's out there who's got an astrology chart maybe in front of them, look at the degree that the galactic center is sitting at. It should be between maybe 26 and 27 degrees of Sagittarius. And it's that way for everybody literally on the planet right now. Mm-hmm. Because the galactic center, the center of the Milky Way galaxy here, is only moving that 1 degree in about 72 years or so. So it kind of makes it a little different perspective if you look at the lifetime span versus the space of time that we perceive the universe is moving.
You said the degree of galactic center is 26 or 27 degrees Sagittarius, right?
Correct.
So Sagittarius is a fire sign.
Correct.
So we are in a time of purification. Think about what's going on around the planet. Earth, water, and air can all be polluted. Fire is pure. It can never be polluted. It cleanses. So it's very appropriate where we are sitting here in the middle of the center, the degree of galactic center being in the middle of the fire.
It is. It's in the middle of the fire, burning away untruth, because that's what the hallmark of Sagittarius is about the search for the bigger truths.
Yes.
The truths that really set us free, as opposed to the ones that we have in our limited mind that keep us chained up to fears or to all of this, stuff that we think and we believe to be true. So it's interesting. Now, I'm going to take us into a little bit different category of talk at the moment, because we have a question out there from Ursula. She says, around the globe, many are seeing large spacecraft. Would you guys comment on what you know about the craft and what role they are playing, and how we hold this in love and not fear?
Great question. First of all, I would say we have been aware of them being around the planet for a good 2 decades. We see them. Other people that we know on occasion see them. My take on this is not that they've suddenly appeared, but that the veil is getting thinner and people are awakening more to the reality of what's really there. So I think they have always been around the planet, helping us move through this time of transition. And I think as we evolve ourselves independently and collectively, we are opening to being able to see our brothers and sisters from the stars.
I would add to that there are many space societies that are involved in not only watching what's going on here on this planet, but actively interested in beaming energy, beaming light, beaming love. They can't, by galactic or cosmic law, take away our sense of human choice. They cannot alter that. We have to do what we have to do responsibly to clean up the mess we've created. But they're adding their energy in a positive way to help us, especially those who are aware enough to see them, to actually put more energy into what we're trying to do. And there are so many of them. I mean, they're the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Orions, the Sirians. There are
the Andromedans.
There are so many different groups. And what they've been telling us through our connections is that they are ramping up or amping up the amount of ships in order to have their energy in our atmosphere to do exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And there's no accident that so many people are looking in the night sky and seeing things. Many of them are seeing things in a larger way, bigger ships, more ships. Pia and I were in Spain, gosh, in 2017. We spent several months at a friend's retreat center, and that area where we were was known as one of the absolute focal points of seeing ships in the world. On one day, we saw 45 ships in the daylight, nakedly there. They were just there. And
there were 36 in one group, and then a little bit over and just a little ways over the rest of them. But we counted this enormous number, and they were visible. The friends we were with saw them, we saw them, everybody saw them. So they've been around and they show up periodically.
But they're apparently, go ahead.
In regard to the half of the question about how do we hold this in love instead of fear, I think the answer to that can only be found by what you feel in your heart, because that's where you trust in what you feel. The mind is what produces the fear. Laarkmaa, our beloved Pleiadian friends, have been telling us for a long time that the dark beings that wanted to control this planet, that wanted to come here and abduct people and do all those nasty things, are no longer allowed in our field. They have been prohibited from entry. So those stories that people hold on to that they've heard, and I'm not denying the stories were true at one point.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not true, but that kind of activity is no longer allowed intergalactically. So therefore, there's no need to be afraid based on what old stories have brought fear to the surface.
Or what the governments around the world are saying about an imminent attack. This has been going around on the internet for months and months and years, that there is probably going to be an interstellar war, and that they are going to come and attack Earth and humans. This is all made up junk by governments trying to continue to scare people, to keep them in a fear mode.
If you think about everything else the government has lied about in the last 2 years alone, and we could go further, but just in the last 2 years alone, if you think about how many things the government has put out there, and I don't mean just one government, I mean all of them, that have been proven not to be true or not to be the whole truth, whatever it may be, it fits that they would also distort the truth about our interstellar friends that are around the planet. They want us to be in a state of fear, the governments. The interstellar friends are helping us move away from fear so that we could reclaim our power, our freedom, and become cosmic citizens again.
I know we're spending a lot of time on answering this question, but I think this is a classic case of smoke and mirrors. I think that governments around the world bring up issues in order to mask other issues that are going on that they don't really want people to know about. They will bring up a false flag of something. And as Pia said, this has been going on for decades, a long time. And I think the issue of being afraid of interstellar beings is just one example of maybe they're trying to get us not to look over in door number 3 or door number 4, by keeping us in this fear space about, oh no, we're going to be attacked. I think it's a classic case of distorting what's really going on, so we don't manage to really look at the things that are essential that we should be looking at.
Which we learned when COVID was first announced and social distancing closed all of the schools. And while the schools were closed, they managed to put 5G antenna over all the schools in many, many places. If we weren't looking at what was going on with the 5G, which had been in everybody's attention span, everybody was looking at what was happening to 5G. All of a sudden, there was a new perceived threat. People forgot about 5G, and the governments worldwide took advantage of that time to install 5G antenna. So that's the kind of thing Cullen's talking about look over here, don't look over there.
So why are they here then? If they don't want to, if they can't help us, then why are they here?
Well, they can help us, but they can't intervene. Remember we said everything is energy?
Yeah.
They are beaming positive energy into us. And as we awaken, we absorb that energy and we're able to make more conscious and more powerful choices. So they are helping us, but they're doing it indirectly because they're not allowed to interfere with our freedom of choice. We have to choose to accept their gift. We have to choose to align with the truth. We have to choose to take action on things that aren't right, that we have to work against them.
You know, one morning I was standing out, it was maybe in the early, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I happened to be outside because my husband was up early and he called me to come outside because outside above us was a whole entire, I don't know, squadron. I don't know a better word, but literally hundreds of these UFOs that were flying from west eastward and high enough that you knew they weren't airplanes because you couldn't see wings and you couldn't, there's no way our aircraft can move that way. And I was like, wow, I wonder what is up that there's so many of them and where are they going? And they were actually kind of playful in the sky, like they were kind of darting around each other. And I remember thinking to myself that kind of behavior didn't feel threatening. Mm-mm. It felt more like they're moving around, freely. So I wasn't feeling threatened by it, but a lot of people would have taken that and maybe been a little frightened that there was some kind of invasion happening.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, one of the things that we often talk about when we're sharing what our Pleiadian friends are bringing forward to humanity is that one of the reasons why they're so interested in us is because planet Earth is a huge experiment. This experiment's been going on for eons. And what happens here collectively about human consciousness, what kinds of decisions we make, what kinds of responsibilities we choose to take, are being watched all over the universe because we're a unique group here. Human choice is not something that exists in every community on every planet where there is intelligent life. This ability for the group of us here, humans, Homo sapiens, is quite different. We do have choice. Many societies don't have a choice. Their evolutionary process doesn't include that in how they're developing. So interstellar societies are extremely interested and watchful of what we're doing because
they want to know how we're going to use that gift of choice.
Because what we do here does ripple out into the entire universe. And so the interest level and the reason there's so many ships and so many beings watching and being around us is they're entirely interested in what the heck we're going to do.
What will they do next?
To clean up this mess that we have created collectively. It's a really interesting idea that they're so interested. They're like parents watching children develop. It's just an interesting,
and shaking their head and going, when will they learn?
Often, yes.
Thank you, guys. That was great. We have another question from Christine Buckingham. She wants to know what your opinion is on starseed astrology, or if you've even heard of that. She said she had one of those charts done a few years back, and I also did have one a few years back.
Is that Lavender's work?
I had it done with Angie Witzel. I don't know who Christine had hers done through. Maybe you could type that in for us, Christine. Are you guys able to see the row of comments on the right side?
No.
Oh, darn. Because there's a lot of comments here. Good morning to everybody. I know we're talking, so I haven't said much to my followers, but good morning to all of you. Suzanne, it's great to see you out there. And Raisha, thanks for joining us. She says, LOL, we definitely are unique. We are God in manifest. We are so very more powerful that we allow ourselves to know, but we're waking up to the truth. That's so true. So I haven't heard back from Christine where she got that yet, but so tell me what you think about starseed astrology then.
Well, neither of us have had a chart done by starseed astrology, but we've had some pretty deep conversations about it with Lavendar, who I believe is the one who founded it. She may be just someone who uses it, but my memory tells me that she actually founded the system. And I think it offers some deep insights into our evolutionary path. I think it's a good adjunct to the field of astrology.
It was pretty in-depth. I mean, looking, I'm sure are correlating a lot of what they see as, the starseed energy based on your astrology sign and rising sign, sun and rising in this lifetime. So as a way to kind of tune in to where maybe your evolution is taking you as you hop perhaps through different star systems. And I thought it was fascinating. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it seemed as deeply as we went into it, it seemed very believable and very helpful.
Maru Matu is her name. Maru Matu. Not heard of her.
Don't know her.
No, we don't either.
No. But I wonder, it was maybe the Lavendar, was she teaching others about how to do starseed astrology? So maybe that's.
Yep.
Yeah.
We haven't talked to her probably in 5 years. So she was training people at that time, so I'm sure she's got other competent people who are trained in place.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet you're right. The one that had done mine, it took her a few days to do it, because not only was she looking at charts, but she would also sit in a, sort of channeled state or an intuitive state waiting for information to come in. And I really appreciated the work that she did on it. But it's hard to say, I can't like guarantee you that those are the lifetimes I've led and what have you, but I can, tell you that there were truths in it that I found striking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if she sounds like she's doing exactly what I do, because when I do a Pleiadian-Earth energy chart for somebody, I also spend time in an intuitive state listening and connecting with that person's higher self and getting information that I add into their chart to make it more useful to that particular person now. So anybody who has the capability of doing that and can add that piece of work into their chart, I think is really helpful and valuable.
Yeah, I think it just gives another level of awareness that's out there, that's available to us. J-Lo is saying that Meru is in Peru for 2 months at the moment on a retreat. So for those people who might want to reach out, she wouldn't probably be available. Christine says, I followed her since the very beginning, but have fallen off lately. So everybody seems to love this idea of that starseed astrology. And I think there's something very appealing in thinking of ourselves as more of a galactic nature or of a galactic lineage, because it feels so limiting here sometimes, just having this, as a, because many people, believe that this is the only life that they'll have on this planet. I mean, that's what religion has taught them.
Yes.
That's part of the expansion that we're experiencing right now, is looking at ourselves beyond this third dimensional experience. The field of evolutionary astrology also looks at what we call parallel lives. They call it past lives, but we call it parallel because it's just happening in another dimension. Pleiadian-Earth energy astrology is talking about what cosmic gifts you bring here to this planet to explore what you're here doing on this planet now. The starseed astrology adds another dimension to it. What you do is the basis for all of it. The Western astrology is the basis of looking at how we on Earth interact with the planets all over the galaxy in our universe. So each of the systems offers something to help us expand our awareness.
Yeah. Go ahead, Cullen.
Well, I was just going to say that years and years and years ago, I was working with a trance channel. I've been interested in channeling since I was a teenager, and I was working with this amazing, amazing energy, 35, 40 years ago. And what this energy was bringing forth was telling the audiences that we're part of a much bigger experience than just our human experience here, as you just said a minute ago, Janet. And it frightened many people in the audience, because many people cling to the idea that this is it. This is the only experience. And you're right, religion and even science has made people think that we're here once, we better get it right, we don't know where we're going. And this channel was really specifically talking about, look, you're from the stars. We're all from the stars. We're here on this planet now, but our evolutionary path has come from a long, long, long way away. And I remember talking to people after these sessions, and some of the people were just saying, no, I can't believe that. I love the Earth. I love the waterfalls. I love the sunsets. I love the mountains. I'm just here as part of Earth, and that's all I'm interested in. And I think that's such a limited scope of understanding, because as we've been talking about today, we're much bigger than that. We have a much earlier beginning than just having to be here on Earth at this particular time.
Yeah, I can totally understand why some people might feel that way, because we are by nature, at least on this planet, security oriented, or wanting stability, and to feel the ground beneath our feet and know what's happening, and that we can trust that feeling of belonging or having our feet on the ground. But that cuts us off from so many other experiences. It's very Earth-like to feel the need for that kind of safety and security. It's a part of who we are, or a part of our lineage, let's say. But as we have been evolving over the course of time, it's time to let go of the need to have that safety and security, because you're an unlimited being. And I think that's the part that we've missed, is that we've maybe been conditioned out of our unlimited nature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Yes. I think that really is accurate, truthful. And I think that is part of why we've been so self-limited in this loop of a mental understanding, just a mental understanding. It doesn't have anything to do with feelings or dimensional understanding. Just, we're here. That's the end of the story. Yes, absolutely.
But there's so much more to the story. It's like having only one book in your library and making up the entire story of what's going on in the universe based on that one book.
Yes, yes.
Where there are, just in front of me, I probably have 50 books that I could be reading that are all about adding to the story. So I think maybe in order to come into the density of this planet, we have to sort of shed all of our awarenesses so that we can focus on what we came here to do. Would you say that's accurate?
Well,
completely.
Yes.
There's an ancient story that keeps resurfacing about the 7 or 9 blind men who are all touching an elephant, and each one of them is sure that it's a snake because it's holding the tail, or it's a tree because it's holding one of the huge legs. The story goes on and on, 9 different ways. But that kind of analogy is only seeing one part of the whole, when we're capable of being able to see the entire picture, the entire whole. And I think many of us are stuck in that very small experience.
I have a friend that used to say, she probably still does say, it feels so real, doesn't it? And I'd be like, yeah, it does. It feels so real that, we get caught up in the belief that we're not really the ones creating the reality that we're in. And that there's only this reality because of our eyes, right? We can see this reality. If we didn't have eyes, if we were blind, then we would have maybe all of this other stuff that was potentially in our expression, even if our tendency might be to just feel the tail and say it's a snake, or feel the leg and say it's a tree.
Yep. Pia, what was that quote we were given recently about seeing? Do you remember? Someone gave us this really beautiful.
Give me more than that.
It was about not what you're looking at, but what you're seeing.
Oh, that was Laarkmaa. Laarkmaa said that.
Really?
On one of their live calls, they said, let me see if I can get it together. You don't see the world as it is. You see the world as you are.
Ooh. Can you say that again?
You do not see the world as it is. You see the world as you are.
That's profound.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Laarkmaa comes up with some profound stuff sometimes.
As any good being from an advanced civilization should.
They also are fond of quoting. Every now and then they'll throw out a quote and say, well, this is from your own culture, and they'll give us a quote. So they do bring up things that help us to remember the larger picture.
Christine says, seeing the forest for the trees. Exactly. That's kind of the thing.
Yep.
All right. So there's a lot of comments, and they're just popping by so fast I can't really see. So any questions out there, Asa's out there to hopefully bring those to me. I should check my phone, I suppose, because I haven't checked that. Question. Okay, I got that one. And I got the Ursula question. So what is Laarkmaa talking about lately? What seems to be, is there a theme in the message for what comes next after we move out of the shadow period? Something that they really want us to know as we move forth?
The primary thing they're emphasizing right now is that it is essential that we keep our vibration up, not to be distracted by the drama of everything that's happening in the third dimension. Do our part, take responsibility for saying no when it's appropriate or saying yes when it's appropriate. But at the same time, don't do it with a sense of anger or doom and gloom or anything that's going to lower our vibration. Keeping our vibration up is what's going to help us through the ascension process. That's one of the major things that I would say. What would you add?
Well, they're also talking about this year of 2021 being the year of revolution or / evolution. That this year, the energy available right now is about what Pia just said, standing up. If there's something that you know in your heart, you just cannot abide, you cannot agree with, stand up and say, no, I am not going to agree with that. And conversely, if something comes up that you really feel completely resonant with, say yes and talk to people about it. Spread the energy of what is good that's going on, not just all the negative parts, all of the things that have been keeping society down for the past year and a half. So I think keeping our vibration up and being a little bit more vocal in the yes department and the no department for creating what we really want, because it's up to us to create it. And if we don't stand up and speak out, it's not going to happen. We have to create it with others, and not just humans, with the stellar beings, with all of the kingdoms, the angelic kingdom, the David kingdom. We have to be connected to all the energies that are helping to create the world we're looking for.
And having the courage to do it, not sitting back and saying, well, I'll let somebody else talk because I'm just one little person and nobody's going to listen to me, poor me. You know, don't do that. Let them have the courage and recognize that you do have the power to make a difference, because as Cullen said when he combined revolution and evolution, revolution is about evolution. It's about revolting from the lies, revolting from the things that have kept us down, revolting from the kind of things that have kept us imprisoned in an illusion, and evolving beyond that illusion to a bigger reality.
Oppression, letting it go.
Yes.
Exactly. The protests, the two huge protests in London in the past several months were amazing. 1 million people in one of them and more than 1 million in another.
And the one in Germany?
There's one coming up in Germany. We were on a radio show or a YouTube show this past Monday night. And the guest before us was a German man who is organizing a protest in Germany. And they are expecting 2.5 million people.
What are they protesting?
They're protesting everything the government has done to lie and to harm humanity, crimes against humanity. And I think at last count, they are now expecting 2.6 million people. And so it's gone even above 1.5 million in the last few days. This is a European radio show that we appeared on, and the Europeans are really beginning to speak out about a lot of things. For instance, Spain has refused to let anybody fly on the Spanish Airlines who has been vaccinated, because they are recognizing that people who have been vaccinated are at risk for stroke or blood clot at altitude. So no pilots, no passengers, no flight attendants. If you've been vaccinated, you don't fly on a Spanish airline.
This is the huge Iberian Spanish state-owned airline. Iberia. It's a huge company. And there's another group. I don't know if it's what's the Russian?
Aeroflot in Russia has also done it. So it's sweeping across Europe. It's all the way from Spain and it's all the way going across to Russia. And there are pockets of people who are beginning to stand up and say, this just isn't right. And they're seeing all the documented evidence of where the lies are showing up, and they're going, we're not going to take it anymore. This is revolution, evolution.
So were the two protests that you talked about in London in the same vein?
Those were mostly against the same thing, but not at the degree that the one in Germany is going to be. And I'm sure there are going to be more protests in UK and Europe also, because this morning they just announced that their third pilot has just dropped dead immediately after a vaccination when he flew.
British Airlines.
They're grounding pilots and they're grounding people who've been vaccinated because the pilots are dying from the vaccinations at altitude.
So they cannot risk having pilots flying if they don't know what the health of the pilot is going to be during the entire flight.
So we're going to see some global changes, massive changes, but the main thing that we're noticing is that all of these changes are revealing the lies we've been told. And the choices we've been led to make have come from the lies we've been told. So it's time that we wake up and see the big picture.
So a question from someone that is totally off topic there, but I thought it was an interesting one about seeing, I'm going to get my phone because I can't find it in the string there. How do you feel about seeing faces in the clouds? Do you believe it's communication coming from the veil being thinner?
Absolutely.
Certainly.
No doubt.
We see faces when we're walking in nature. We see faces in rock formations, in the bark of trees. We see faces everywhere, and I would liken this to crop circles. Mm-hmm. I think it's communication from other energies showing themselves, and if we have the eyes to see, we can see these things all around us, wherever we're in nature. Clouds are part of nature. Trees are part of nature. We even see it in water sometimes. We'll see a waterfall, and the way the water is dividing itself around rocks, we can see faces in that also.
So it's a matter of communicating with other kingdoms. In nature, in water or trees or rocks, we're seeing the David kingdom or something in the nature spirits that's communicating with us. Definitely a thinning of the veils. In the sky, when it's the clouds, it can be interstellar beings, it can be angelic, it can be any kind of thing like that. Absolutely.
But phenomenon like this that we're talking about is showing up more and more. More people are noticing these kinds of messages worldwide.
I just saw an interesting word that I've not heard before. Pareidolia. Christine says, I regard pareidolia as nature-given signs. Is that something about like the human mind that wants to make something out of a sign? You know how like seeing a face in a rock or in a cloud is part of our brain trying to make sense of what we're seeing? That's a scientific thing.
I don't think so. I think this is heart-based. I think this is a connection through the heart where the brain gets left out. So I don't think it's the mind doing anything.
No, I think that.
Christine says it's seeing faces, etc., in clouds. So that's what pareidolia is.
Oh, not familiar with that term. That's great. Learning a new word.
No, I know, me too. I was like, what? I've never seen that word.
So what do you have to share with all of us today?
I really was just going to share about the summer solstice coming up. These are power times of the year where we're moving through. In human design, we see this as a moving through the next level of love, as in every season opens up the next facet of the loving energy available on the planet. So in the summer or winter solstice time, the gates of love that are enacted are the gates of self-love and the gate of the love of humanity. Interesting. And that will also happen again at the Christmas or winter solstice, that they're opposite. Then it's the sun is at the gate 15, love of humanity, where the earth is at the gate 10, self-love. So we see that these times of the year that are what we call seasons are shaping the energy of love as we know them, as we, move into the season. And astrologically, when you look at the summer solstice, it's at 0 degrees of Cancer. And Cancer is a sign of remembering home and family and our traditions, the things that bind us or connect us to one another. And so we see that that is part of the seasonal shift that we're going through. And then from an astrological point of view, the sun and earth are creating both the challenge and the spotlight of what direction we can move. Well, the spotlight is now on self-love, while the challenge is about how to love oneself, even in the face of having to be compassionate and loving toward humanity. So how do we, I saw a few people pushing out this word sovereignty, which is so annoying to me, that word. Just, I can't get that word separated from things like royalty and, the whole thing about being ruled over. And so, I mean, that's nothing personal to anybody out there who is throwing out that word, but that word just drives me crazy in that context. But in a way, sovereignty, being your own ruler or your own voice, your own, just being your own self is a part of this, but recognizing that you are also a part of a group of people. I think we opened with that this morning about how, that this is a planet where we're having to learn about how to get along, right? How do we maintain our own boundaries and our own individualism, but also being a part of this group consciousness that we have here on the planet. So it's an interesting time. Now, some of the other players in the game right now, Jupiter, who turns retrograde just as the summer solstice begins, or the winter solstice if you're in the southern hemisphere, takes a lot of the growth and expansion energies that have been pushing outward and bring them inward. So now we are in a position through this particular season to really grow within and to do the things that we need to do within us to be able to see the changes that we want to see out in the world. And Jupiter is the last of the major outer planets to change. Actually, that's not true. Neptune turns retrograde next week. So we'll have most of the planets that are from Jupiter outward in retrograde, except Uranus. So we have one little engine over here that's creating this craziness in the outer world of change in the bigger picture, while all of those other planets that are in the outer field are pushing inward. So we're having a collective inner growth pattern, as well as one planet that's, stirring the pot, saying we've got to make some changes. So the season then, as we look forward to what goes on, for the next 3 months, because we can draw a chart up. I actually did draw a chart up of the summer solstice, and those were the things that really stuck out to me, is that there's the potential for us to change the way that we feel about one another, about how we feel on the planet, because we're engaging more loving energy at this time. But that, again, is a personal choice. You could choose to stay in the fear field or to stay in the shadow fields and be driven by that energy, or you can choose to greet everything from a love point of view, from loving point of view. Does all that make sense?
Yes.
So the other thing I wanted to share this morning is, let's see, do I have time to do this? No, I really don't have time to do this. So, but I wanted to, we've been really working on combining astrology and human design, thus Astro-Design, as the work that I'm doing at the moment. And one of the things that I noticed, and I think I said this earlier in the broadcast, was that this season is also poignant because we're changing to energies in human design that are aligned with the spleen in our human design. So right now with the moon in Libra, and on Sunday, the moon will be in Scorpio when it changes to the next season. And those are energies that bring up some more of that shadow energy. Why I said it sort of extends that season of the collective shadow. Now we have to deal with our own personal sides of the shadow. But lest everybody believe that it's all about the shadow, it really isn't. It's about the gift when we elevate ourselves or evolve or create a personal revolution and choose to live in the gift or the siddhi frequency, the highest frequencies of energy. And that is a personal choice. You're never the victim of that shadow or that fear. You instead have every moment at your disposal to change the way that you feel, to change the way that you view the world, and to elevate that through the eyes of love. And that'll have to be the last that I say about this today. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Pia and Cullen, for joining me today. I cannot believe how fast the time flies when we're together. And I love it. They will be again with us on July, did we decide, Pia, was July 16th?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't see. My eyes are blurry this morning. So July 16th, and we'll have, I'm sure, something interesting to chat about then. In the meantime, everybody take care and happy solstice. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.